Uh, the new bending process is actually pretty simple. The big change is I don't use craft paper. I'm now using untreated butcher's paper. Craft paper, depending upon the supplier, some can be highly acidic, and then it tends to turn some woods, koa especially, will turn green and stain. This does not stain. The other thing that I have changed is I no longer use Super Soft 2 Windex with ammonia D. Now I don't have streaky wood. Actually, the ammonia is a natural cell softener, and it works very well. I'm going to be showing the bending process, and the reason why we're kind of backwards, because of video, I can show you the finished product, I can show you the bending process, and then you just don't have to wait the hour for everything to cool down. So, this is tied in with a standard bender, and over here we actually have the Ukulele Bender. Now, the Ukulele Bender has a much smaller carriage than this one does, but they can do the same job. So, I bent East Indian rosewood, and we're going to put a video up with the different temperatures that we use. But with East Indian rosewood, that usually bends very well. 220, 240, lower bout, 260, 270, upper bout, run the waist. Take it up, I usually take it to about 325. And then I set my variable and my timer to 15 minutes. And I find and dial in to 250, just a little bit above boiling point, to get the moisture out. Takes about another 30 minutes for it to cool down, and then you can remove the wood. Now, I do have a side profile fixture that I'll show you in a little bit. And you can see I backed off my waist, the lower bout. Now I can take the spring off. And this helps to relieve a lot of underneath stress. And you can see how nice the bend is. If you hold the slat down, you can see it's pretty close onto the pattern. So I know I got a decent bend. The springs are there, so I don't have to turn the crank all day to get the waist call out. And now I can slide this out. So that is side one, out of the regular bending machine. You can see a little bit of spring back here because we're kind of forcing time. But I put this into my mold, and whenever you bend, you can put your mold on your side, and you can see how nice that's fitting. That way that can set while you're getting the other side prepped and ready. Not everybody has 2 or 3 benders. Now, I'm done with this, and so that this doesn't make a lot of noise, slide that over here. I'm going to do the same thing. Just while I'm thinking of it, I'm going to grab a mold for that right away. Then that way we can... Are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
I get a good view of both benders. That's...
Okay. All right. Well, here we go. The new bending process is actually pretty simple. The big change is I don't use craft paper. I'm now using untreated butcher's paper. Craft paper, depending upon the supplier, some can be highly acidic, and then it tends to turn some woods, koa especially, will turn green and stain. This does not stain. The other thing that I have changed is I no longer use Super Soft 2 Windex with ammonia D. Now I don't have streaky wood. Actually, the ammonia is a natural cell softener, and it works very well. I'm going to be showing the bending process, and the reason why we're kind of backwards, because of video, I can show you the finished product, I can show you the bending process, and then you just don't have to wait the hour for everything to cool down. So, this is tied in with a standard bender, and over here we actually have the Ukulele Bender. Now, the Ukulele Bender has a much smaller carriage than this one does, but they can do the same job. So, I bent East Indian rosewood, and we're going to put a video up with the different temperatures that we use. But with East Indian rosewood, that usually bends very well. 220, 240, lower bout, 260, 270, upper bout, run the waist. Take it up, I usually take it to about 325. And then I set my variable and my timer to 15 minutes. And I find and dial in to 250, just a little bit above boiling point, to get the moisture out. Takes about another 30 minutes for it to cool down, and then you can remove the wood. Now I do have a side profile fixture that I'll show you in a little bit. And you can see I backed off my waist, the lower bout. Now I can take the spring off. And this helps to relieve a lot of underneath stress. And you can see how nice the bend is. If you hold the slat down, you can see it's pretty close onto the pattern. So I know I got a decent bend. The springs are there so I don't have to turn the crank all day to get the waist call out. And now I can slide this out. So that is side one, out of the regular bending machine. You can see a little bit of spring back here because we're kind of forcing time. But I put this into my mold, and whenever you bend, you can put your mold on your side and you can see how nice that's fitting. That way that can set while you're getting the other side prepped and ready. Not everybody has 2 or 3 benders. Now, I'm done with this, and so that this doesn't make a lot of noise, slide that over here. I'm going to do the same thing now with the ukulele.
You were caught.
I was caught. Okay, this ukulele frame, the same process. Back my waist off. Doesn't matter if I do the front or back first. So I can back the springs off. Alright? And if this wiggles a little bit, it's not a big deal because it's the pattern it's going to take the shape from. So you don't have to worry if the pattern wiggles a little. Then I take the springs off and pop out the waist call. Here comes my side set. This is from the Ukulele Bender. And you can see that's just a little bit of moisture. There's no staining. Super Soft 2 always used to leave dark marks. Now granted they came out, but that was just one more part of the process that we had to take care of. And so that you can see, so the Ukulele Bender bent just like the standard bender. That is the crux of this whole argument. If you want to build soprano, small ukuleles, and regular guitars, the deluxe bender is the one that you want. If you have no intentions of building ukuleles, then this one's the one you want. And I hope that that shows you a little bit more of what our products are able to do. And I am now going to show you how to bend a set of sides. We're also going to do a cutaway. We've never done a cutaway before. So we're going to show you how to bend a cutaway today. Also, while we're talking, let's talk about temperatures, thicknesses of the different woods. I like to, for lack of a better term, we're going to call the woods soft and porous. Mahogany, kind of soft and porous. Rosewood, more glass-like. The harder the wood, usually actually the easier it bends. Where mahogany is probably the most difficult wood to bend for a beginner is because a lot of people are afraid to take it up to heat. So, most of the regular woods, rosewood, walnut, babinga, they can bend in that 250 to 325 range. And by that I mean 250 at the lower bout, 275, take it up to 325, and all of them I use to cool down at 250, so-ish, for 15 minutes. Mahogany likes a little less moisture, and there I will still start bending at the 250, 270, but I will take that up to 375 degrees. Then let it cool down, and I showed you the trick about loosening the spring. Hold the bottom slat, lift the top slat, and see how tight the wood is hugging the pattern. If it boings back up, run another heat cycle. With mahogany, be very aware of hard and soft spots. That generally is what leads to cupping. I do generally bend at about 75 thousandths thick. I think that's 2.5 millimeters. I'm not 100% sure. You guys know what it is. But that's where I'm at. Just a little over 1/16 of an inch. And I do pre-shape my sides. And you'll see those patterns. They're right over here. That is for the OM or triple O shape. Basically, I'm going to say that this is for 15-foot backs. My regular guitar, this is the Dreadnought. So this is basically for the larger, or basically a 20-foot back radius. When we do a cutaway, I will mark a little bit of a bubble here, because as the cutaway goes back into the rim, it also goes into the sphere, so it gets thicker. So we're going to prep a side here to do in the cutaway, and you'll get to see that shortly, and we'll be back in a few minutes. There you go. Alright, now we're going to prep, and I'm going to show you how to bend a standard side and a cutaway side. Now, in order to do a cutaway, I was talking about how you have to put a little hump in the side. So, for demonstration purposes, I lay my pattern on here. And you can see I have a line. Well, that's for a standard. In order to do a cutaway, we're going to create this little hump in there. Now, this is not rocket science, folks. This is just simple physics, or simple engineering. I come up about 1/2 of an inch. Okay? Doesn't have to be a lot. We're going to create a high spot. Now, at the same token, I got to put a little bit of a hump. So you see that little bit of a hump I created. Not a big deal. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the bandsaw and I'm going to cut that out. When we do our bending, this is going to be the point where the cutaway is, and that's going to be very obvious when we put it in the mold later. Now we're going to make a little noise. I'm going to move this again, because we'll have to prep things up. And I'm just going to cut this, and that's probably a little more of a hump than I need, but I just want you to be very aware of what we're doing. So now you can see that hump. Very definitive. When I do a cutaway, I generally stop my cutaway on the cutaway side, right at the neck block, and I'll bring my standard part across my neck block instead of making a center joint. So we're going to prep the sides for bending. Okay. Alright, we're bending a cutaway, and we're going to need the standard side and we're going to need the cutaway side. But a cutaway needs a right side and the left side. So if you take a look at this, and if I bent it this way with the straight side towards me, alright, here's my top, so when I flip it, my cutaway is here, so that's the way I want to do this. Right-sided guitar, top is on the left-hand side. Now, I have it marked on my bender, 1 and 2, because usually you only have one bender, and you want to really get into the habit of doing the same way every time. So if you first side this way, second side that way, you're going to bend two different sides. Because if you bend two of the same sides, you can straighten them out and rebend them. For a cutaway, this has to be to the front for a right-handed guitar. For a left-hander, yes, then you can put it the other way. So that is a note I just wanted you to be well aware of. Now, I'm going to prep to bend. The other thing that you want to do is you want to look at your wood and decide which is going to be your show side and which is not going to be your show side. So I have a little faux pas here that I don't like. So I'm going to mark this, and you can use anything. Chalk, white pencil, which happens to be my favorite because I buy these by the tongue. Now, I know that that white mark, if I have it up, I'm bending a right side and a left side. So the first thing I'm going to bend now, remember, I got to have this towards me for a right-handed guitar. So this is going to be the treble side. I'm going to bend that first. Now to prep it, my Windex, and I just put a little bit of a spray on the metal. Then I can take my paper and I just pat that in there. If I didn't do that, the paper waddles around and kind of makes it a little difficult to control. Now I'm going to spray the wood. And I'm not soaking it, I'm not dripping it, I'm just giving it a light spray. I don't know if the camera can pick this up. What I'm looking for is I'm actually looking for the moisture to get sucked into the wood and not pulled up. Now, I'm happy. Right here it's dried off a little bit. I'll just give it a little extra. I'll put this on here and I'll give it. So you can see I just have light, even coats. Now this is the cutaway side. We're going to go bend a cutaway. So now we're going to go over here, and I'm doing the cutaway on the little bender. Helps to have the heating blanket on there. Now I do put the heating blanket on the top. Okay. That's got to go in here. There we go. Now I have what I call a story pole. And you can see it's just a ruler. Has a slot in it that I can hook in here, and that is where the end of my side needs to be, so that when we put this into the mold, those mating joints butt up and look like they belong there. So there goes a piece of paper, and right here you can see if I put that there, I'm within a ½ an inch, and that's, for all intents and purposes, what we're doing. That's absolutely fine. Now I'm going to put this, just kind of grab it a little bit. That way I don't have to worry about it getting all flopped around. Got to get my thermometer. And now I'm going to put my thermometer in here. And I'm going to put my waist call in. There goes the waist call. There we are. And I'll hook the springs up when I get to the other side. Now I put my thermometer in, I plug in my heating blanket.
And the thermometer is between?
The thermometer is underneath the blanket and on top of the slat, the top slat. Don't put it on a piece of wood because you're going to find that that can cause you some problems. I can also now turn down the waist call just to give me a little friendly friction, and I hook up my spring. Now you can see I have these little chunks of metal here. They actually serve a purpose just to kind of help hold that together so that the heat's getting onto the piece of wood. This is getting hot rather quickly. A heating blanket, they are not all the same. I use a very specific heating blanket. It's designed to be rubbed on. and it's a 5 watts per square inch, so I have plenty of power. A lot of people have cheaper blankets, but they are also lower wattage. Will they get hot? Yes, they will. But when you need the thermal load, it takes them too long to pull the heat back up, and then what happens, a lot of times the cells set before you're ready to bend, and then you're going to crack. Now my temperature, you can see how quick this is going. This is about 50 seconds, and I'm now at bending temperature for the bat. Now I just gently hold this and I start my bending process. And you can see with it clamped and me actually behind it, I have a little more control. So there, the lower bout has been set. I generally do lower bout, upper bout, and then waist. Here, up, I'll do the lower bout, then the waist. All right. And I bring that down, so now the waist is set. I will check that this is still damp. And it's damp, but I'm going to give it, oh, they don't spray when they aren't turned on. Okay, and I just give it a little bit. Now, I'm going to be bending 2 bends at one time, and I'm going to pull this over. The temperature now is at 275 degrees. I do have an anti-hand burning unit, because it does get hot. I'm going to hold this up as I start pushing the waist. Now this is actually putting 2 bends at once, and you can see I'm not stopping once I start, and there I go. The cutaway has now been set. My temperature is now at 325 degrees. I don't care, you aren't going to scorch the wood until you hit about 420, and then it takes a little bit of time. So it's a time, temperature, duration that causes scorching. I now have 350 degrees on this bend. I'm happy with that. So what I can do is I'm going to go over here. You just heard me set variable. There is a knob on here, and you might be able to see this one right here. I have controls there, variable, off and full, so then I will just turn it. On variable, if you turn the knob all the way open, you're going to be just like it's plugged in. Obviously, full is a direct line right from the socket to the blanket. This is not a variable resistor. It's actually a VSI switch. So it's sending full voltage just in little intervals, like if you'd be turning your light on and off. And that will actually control the temperature very well. If you use a PID controller, that's fine. Just remember, blankets will kind of have hot and cold spots. So I know that most of the time this is the area that you want to be, because there's a little bit of an air pocket here. So just that natural air pocket, that's going to make that the cooler zone. That's where I put my thermometer, and away I go. So now that this is set, we've actually bent this in about 4.5 minutes. So from the time I turned it on to the time the act of bending was done is relatively short. Now the temperature is just going to set things up, and it will kind of freeze the cell, so to speak, and that's going to give us our side. Now I'm going to do the standard. I'm actually going to put the standard in wrong so I can show you how to unbend it and rebend it in another video. So in this video, we're going to pretend that we're doing it correctly. So obviously, that was a treble side. I'm going to bend the second treble side. Dollop of wood softener. Untreated butcher's paper. I buy this from MSC. I get a 12-inch roll, and then I just run it through the saw and cut it off. I don't need this hump.
What hump?
What hump? Now, remember I told you about marking this, so I'm going to put this upside down so I can actually show you how to unbend it. So this is for how to correct something video, and Glenn will show us how to do that. I'm sure you know you can edit this all around, I'm sure. Alright, same thing. I put this into my unit, click this to full, plug that in. For lack of a better term, a story pole, a locator. I'm on my slot. You see where the end of my board is. Pull that up a little bit. And as long as I'm within an inch of that, I'm happy. Okay. I bring the waist down. That's friendly friction. I still have about an inch to go. Thermometer, under blanket, on top of slat. All right. These are the new design hold downs. Now you may not be able to see the thermometer on this side, but we're already at 190 degrees and we've been going for less than a minute. Now I'm kind of cheating here. I have a short plug, so this is actually pulling my blanket down and having contact in the wood, but a little weight won't hurt. 220 degrees, minute and a half seconds in. And it is actually quite remarkable at the temperatures you can bend wood. Wood's stupid. Get it hot, it will bend. There's a lot of people will have a lot of different opinions on temperatures. The fact is, wood is going to bend relatively easily once it gets to be reasonably hot. There we go. Yeah, a little bit more there. There we go. Now you notice I just don't slap it down. I go nice and easy, walk it down. My thermometer fell out, which is no big deal. My timer just popped over here, and that's at 275 degrees. I am now at 200 and actually it's more than 200 because it was cold. Just gently lift this up, and I suggest that you use something other than a numb thumb, and you can see that it's still damp, and I kind of help the bend to start, and you can just see I'm walking it down, not rushing at all. Temperature is showing at 280 degrees. I've now set the waist. So lower bout, upper bout, waist, and you can actually see how nice that's pulled onto the pattern. We're now already at 300 degrees. And at 300 degrees, I'll let this go a little higher. 3.5 minutes right now. I'm going to let it go to 4 minutes. So we got 30 seconds. So the blankets will get hot in a hurry. In the morning, put your coffee cup on there. It stays nice and warm. 325. I'm happy at 325. Variable. And now I'm just going to let this set for 15 minutes. I'll turn that up. We'll come back in 15 minutes and we'll take a look at it. Well, actually, we'll have to wait for an hour till it cools down. So, there we are. Cutaway side, standard side. Basically the same technique. Both times we were done bending between that 4.5 minutes. So, it's not that you got to rush, but I think the majority of people have problems. They take too much time. So, make sure it's damp, make sure it's hot, it will bend. Alright. Thank you. Okay, we bent these sides and I actually left them sit overnight, but that's fine. Now we're going to take these out. And I specifically told you I was going to bend this side wrong so that you can see how to rebend the side in the correct manner. So the first thing I do is I gently remove the lower bout and then loosen the waist. This reduces a lot of the stress on the side so I don't have to worry about cracking it. So, unplug, and I'll pull this out. Now if you remember earlier in the video, we said about having the line to tell you which way you want to bend it. So we now have, this is the back and this is the top, and if you remember we have a cutaway, I got two treble sides. Now I am going to rebend this, and we're going to see how easy this process is. I already have an iron sitting here. I got that hot. Okay, so the tools that I need are an iron, water, paper towels. Make them nice and wet. I'm going to start here at the waist. So you can see I just put a copious amount of water. And the wood actually softens up rather quickly. And I can tell you that you can do this probably two times. The third time won't work. Alcohol was involved. So now, this process that I'm doing now, we're putting heat and steam into here. And this is actually getting pretty soft. And I use the paper towels much like I use the paper in the bending process. That way I can bring water in. And it is amazing the abuse that these can take.
Do you have that set on permanent press or on cotton?
I just have it on hot.
Okay.
Now this is getting nice and soft and spongy. And by spongy, I can feel that it's very flexible. And once that I know I can put the iron down flat, this is ready to go back into the bender. Now I'm going to help it along some. Now, I know with this wood, I'm just going to cheat, and I'm going to put a good soaking on here. I generally don't use this much water, but for this process, I just want to make sure I have enough water. And yes, I could use the Windex also if I wanted to. So, since I got to bend this the opposite way, make sure you put it in what appears to be upside down. Alright? I do this. Okay, I'm set up at this point. I am plugging in. There we go. I got to work this forward a little bit. A lot, actually. So I can just kind of walk this through. And I have it on full. And I now threw the heat to it. Now to know about where this is going to go here, I can come up here with my slat, grab my thumb, and I can see about where this is going to go. The level side looks pretty good. I'm happy with this. I'm going to pull the bottom slat back some, like that. Put my thermometer in. Now I'm going to put the hold downs on. I'm going to put something behind here to put a little string tension on the springs. And this is going to be just like the regular bending. I'm going to be done bending in a matter of minutes. We're already about 200 degrees. I'm going to put this weight on here to kind of help keep the blanket in contact with the slat and in contact with the wood. 203 degrees. And I could put my coffee there and keep it nice and warm. But it is just remarkable at how easy this is to rebend. You would think that, oh my goodness, I just ruined that piece of wood. And I want you to see that, no you didn't. 220 degrees. Okay. And I want to make sure I put this blanket, keep that underneath the blanket. And I'm kind of using the weight here just to help. I can take a lot of heat, but I don't like to burn my fingertips. And as you can see, I'm just gently walking it. You saw how soft this got with the iron. It's the same thing, heat's heat. I'm at 240 degrees. We got plenty of room up here. All right, I'm going to give a little bit of water. Just give it, you'll hear this. That's not the wood cracking, that's the steel snapping. We're at actually about 290 degrees. And you can actually hear the sizzle. All right, 314. I now have this rebent. It took about 3 minutes. Didn't take long. I'm at 300 and almost 340 degrees. I will let this go up to about 350. Then I'm going to turn it to 15 minutes. And I'm just going to hold this. I do have this set to be right around 275. So I'm just going to let it sit at 275 for 15 minutes. And in about an hour, we'll be able to take this all out. And I'm going to show you how to set up a cutaway rim and a mold. Okay, 360 is good enough. I hit variable. I have my knob set, in this case, about 1 o'clock. Different blankets like different settings, so you kind of have to play with it a couple of times. 15 minutes, and we'll be back. Going back to the bending.
Okay, now do it.
Okay, yeah, we're going back to the bending part, and we already rebent the one side. The cutaway's in there, and I'm going to show you how to set up to do a cutaway guitar. We've never done this before. So the first thing you need to do is get your neck and your fingerboard. Also, we're going to be doing a right-hand guitar, obviously. So what you have to do is you set your neck into the neck block. You put your fretboard on the neck, and we take a pencil, and I need to scribe a line on this neck block to represent the taper of the fretboard plus 1/16 of an inch that we're going to allow for the sides of the guitar. That way when you're playing and you come up the neck, you don't have a speed bump, and you'll be able to sand this all in nice and smooth so you have a nice transition from the neck to the body. So what I'm going to do, we know that that has to be done. We'll cut that later, but now you understand the neck block needs to be trimmed. So the next thing we're going to do is now we're going to take the sides out of the bender. We're going to take them and now we're going to trim them to fit. So the first thing I do, pull this out, take this out, and if you remember, this was the side that was backwards, and it is now a bass side guitar. Now you can see it's not perfectly bent. That's because we did kind of rush it, but the mold will take care of this. So I get a D14 mold. You can see there is groove here for the cutaway. So if we imagine we're going to play it this way, this is the top. The top's got to go down. Because the first thing we're going to do is we are going to set the neck block. Now, I can push this in there. I know that that's actually pretty darn close. Yep, that is pretty darn close. Now we get the cutaway out. I need a white pencil. That's what I'm going to use to mark. I'm going to put the slat and blanket away so we don't have that going crash, boom, bang. I loosen the spring. I can take up the ram. I go to the front and I'm going to loosen the cutaway. Now I just loosen the cutaway enough to allow me to work the pattern forward, pull the pin, and slide out the back so I avoid overstressing this, because that could cause a crack. More cracks happen taking out than bending. So I take this up. I can now pull this out. All right, and you can see how this is springing up, which is fine. Gently just push forward a little bit. That lets me take the pin out. Now I can just work this back. Everything's out. That is a cutaway side. And you can see while it's over humped, that's the part right in here that's going to work as my cutaway. So, what's next? Top, down. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to set my cutaway up first. So what I'm doing, so that you can see what I'm doing, let me do this. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to eyeball this off to here. So I made a little mark. It's probably a little long, and I'm fine with that. I'd rather make 4 or 5 cuts than one. Damn it. Oh, I also need
Power.
I need power. This is not the Amish luthier school. Okay, so I now marked the tail end of the cutaway side. The cutaway side is the most critical part to set up. So I am going to do this first. That's actually pretty good. I'm happy with this. Now we have to do the standard side, and for that we're going to go to the drive the bus.
Okay, running.
Okay. So now I'm going to set this up into the mold. And I told you that we did the neck block already. Okay, the first thing I want to do, I'm closing the mold up. I'm going to pin the mold into my little fixture here. All right, I got another side there. Okay. This is going to go in first. Now that is from the center over, good. That's a little over 1 1/8. I'm going to plan this to be somewhere say a 2 1/4 at the 12th fret. So that's going to be pretty close. All right. So I put a line on here because now I'm going to go over to the sander and I can sand that angle in. And so that you can see this is the line of the fretboard, and that would be the outside of the guitar.
Raise it, yeah.
Here is the mark of approximately the thickness of the side. So I'm going to make this line go from here to here at a little bit more of an angle. That way we have a smooth transition as we come up the neck and we won't have a speed bump. So that will only take a second or 10. So, I'm going to check for square.
Up.
So we know it's square. It's going to be going in this way first, but you can see that's nice and square. This would fit in here like this when we're all done. Alright? So now we're going to set the standard side. So the standard side, remember we rebent this side, and this is going to come all the way over to here. Nice. 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 Alright, I think we're ready to trim this to that. I had to open the mold to get this edge to go together. So now you can see we actually have a cutaway rim set up. I want you, can you get close here to see this gap here? This is by design. You see I'm off about 1/4 inch. I'm tight over here, but when I put the spreaders in, this is going to tell me how much I got to trim the actual trim. So you may have to do this a couple of times to get it perfect, and that's fine. Okay, so the spreader comes in. This will push this against the mold. Okay, and look at that. That fits perfect. This is so, I don't need spreaders. Now what I want Glenn to see is, if we look here at this curve, this is kind of this way. So this has to be shortened up so it goes this way. Now I can take a little bit off the edge down here, which lets this slide, so I'm going to do that first. And I'm only going to take off not much. So I'll take off about a saw blade's width. Now I'll put this back in. And the crux of this exercise, we have to get this angle here to match the angle of the tail, or the neck block. I'm getting close, but I'm not happy with it yet. I'm going to take a little bit off of here. Alright, I'm a little bit happier. I think that's going to fit in there the way I want it now. Alright, tighten that up, set my spreaders. Okay, that's going to look a lot better. Now if Glenn gets a good shot of this here at the neck block. Okay, this doesn't appear to have that taper the way I want it yet, but that's okay. When we glue this in, okay, that will grab that and that will straighten everything up. This actually has a little play to it, and that will be adjusted when the builder gets ready to actually make his kit. So with this all together now, alright, I want to loosen this up, put this back together. Now I'm going to just set the geometry up for it. Just got to come down some. There we go. Here we are. Kind of rattle this a little bit, move that to here, push this down to there, lock you into here. That's pretty good. And I try to keep the spreaders at the same height of the mold. So work, pull this over, center it up, nice. Gently lift that open. There you go, done. Okay, now we're kind of ready to drive the bus. What I am going to do here, I'm going to give this a pretend neck block. I'm going to use the neck block here. This will keep it from making all kinds of funny noises when we drive the bus. And it also helps to hold it nice and stiff. Good. Now we're going to establish the geometry. And this is just like we do on a standard guitar. Tail block height, neck block height. Now you can see how high I am here to here. And that's fine. I've taken a little block of plane. I'm going to get a couple of points of measure from here to here. This and this should be about the same. So I know that this should be here, go over here. I can see I'm off by that much. So this is about where this needs to come down to. So this just makes the next part easier. And I'll take this. I gotta go this way. And you notice I'm kind of angled that I'm cutting inside out. Here we have a grain change. I'm going to come this way. And this will all go away. And you can use, I could go get my sander. I'll take this down. Okay, now we're getting close enough. And get a ruler. So right here, 1 inch and 5/8. inch and 5/8. Inch and 5/8, I got to come down a good bit yet. And what do I have at the waist? By the waist we should be even. 2 inch. 2 inch, okay. So this is where I'm going to thin this down. So I had a little bit more than I needed, but that's okay. Now we're at 1 5/8. Oh, 1 5/8. So now we're about even Steven. Now we're going to drive the bus and pull this down. Now you get to see how the different radius of the back and the geometry of this will change, and that's why we had to put that Humpty Dumpty on there. Here's I got a little hold here, makes driving the bus a little easier. Woo. Now you can see the chalk is starting to remove, and here are the high spots, which is expected. And then what I will do next, I'll measure at a couple of spots to make sure that we're coming down even. So you can see we're almost even here at the neck block. Now this neck block that I have for demonstration short will actually make a proper neck block for it as we go. I got to take more off, but let's see how even we're doing. So from here, we're going to call that 1 5/8. Okay, 9/16. I can put a little more weight over here. 2 1/8. 2 1/8. So right here's my high spot. No biggie. Getting there. Okay, we're getting closer. I do want to suck up some of this dust. All right. 4 inches. A little more. Okay. All right. And we're getting closer. So now, let's take a look. We're getting more into where we need to be. Okay, that's showing 4 7/8. 4 7/8. I actually have probably about 1/8 of an inch to take off all the way around. So you can see how you set this up. Your neck block, spreaders, and that's how you do it. That's how you set up a cutaway. I hope that helps you. from my shop to yours, have a good one. Slide that over here. I'm going to do the same thing now with the ukulele.
You were caught.
I was caught. Okay, this ukulele frame, the same process. Back my waist off.
You're gonna do some shirts afterwards?
Yeah, we're going to do shirts and pants. I'm going to turn my humidor.
Did you get approval to use that iron? Or did you steal it from the
I bought my own because if she found out that I could use an iron, I'd be in trouble. Okay.